All right, so now Hayden and I are standing next to Prairie Creek. Prairie Creek is considered one of the most pristine creeks remaining in the state of California. Did you have a question about that?
Yeah, why is the creek so clean?
Well, why is it so clean? Yeah, there's not much pollution here. One of the main reasons is that Prairie Creek Redwood State Park was established early enough to preserve a large chunk of redwood habitat. Much of which this creek flows through that habitat. Since there wasn't any severe logging in this park, there's not much sediment associated with that. So it didn't really choke all the salmon habitat. So this clean water is actually home to coho salmon, cutthroat trout. We occasionally get some chinook that come in here, or maybe even some steelhead. It's home to America's largest land salamander, the coastal giant. So you do find a lot of different kinds of wildlife that flourishes here in the water, a lot of aquatic insects, mosquitoes, and then a lot of animals that enjoy some of that aquatic life. You might even have a kingfisher that flies through here, a lot of birds taking advantage of some of the surrounding vegetation.
What about the plants around here?
The plants, the vegetation? Well, so this is what we call riparian habitat, streamside vegetation. I mean, you can see the forest further in, away from the creek, but along the creeks you get a diversity of plants here. You get alders. We have a lot of fruit-bearing bushes. So if you like eating berries, like salmon berries, huckleberries, thimbleberries, they're all very delicious. And the birds think so too. Sometimes they get them before we do. Now, this water flows year-round.
Yeah, where does it come from?
Where does it come from?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is actually part of the Redwood Creek watershed. This creek will empty into Redwood Creek, which flows through the national park. But it's pretty interesting. If you look at the higher elevations of Prairie Creek Redwood State Park, the tributaries that feed this creek get smaller and smaller, and sometimes it just seems like they're coming out of the sides of the hills in what we would think is a seep or a spring. But the history of this park, the sediment that you see here, all the ground is very porous. There's actually quite good drainage. And a lot of the water that makes this creek flow year-round actually comes from fog that attaches itself to the tops of the redwood canopies, accumulates, comes down as redwood rain, and then gets sucked into the ground. If it's not sucked up by the roots of the trees and the surrounding vegetation, it percolates through the soil and eventually finds itself leaking out the side of a hillside, and it maintains this habitat for all the life that lives here.